Good day, fellow vintage set collectors. My name is Brad of Chai Sox Cardboard, and this is episode 6 of the Season in a Set project. We're going to break new ground today. We're going to cover 13 cards. There may be some outfit changes during this episode because I'm not sure that I can cover all 13 in a single day. But we'll get started here. First, some good news. I had mentioned earlier that I had lost 2 cards. One was card number 188, Sam Bowens, and I found it. It was stuck in some packaging that I had not fully unpackaged. So that was good. The bad news is I also have lost card number 13, Pedro Ramos, and in my quest, my house cleaning that led to finding card number 188, I still did not find number 13, Pedro Ramos. And I've shown the card on this channel, so I know that I have it. There was no mistake. Nobody failed to ship it to me. I have it. I had it, and I lost it. So I'm kind of run out of places to look. I'll have to continue to keep my eyes peeled. If there are any sleuths out there that saw me slip it somewhere during my episode where I showed it, reach out to me. Let me know. It's like a $4 card. So it's not the end of the world, but it's eating at me. Keeps me up at night. I want to find it. All right, but enough about that. Let's move on to the set. And card number 56, Ron Klein. Ron Klein was not a great pitcher by Major League standards, but he did have staying power. He played in 17 different seasons, spanning 19 years. Perhaps foreshadowing the type of career he would have, Klein didn't win his first big league game until more than 3 years after his debut on April 21st, 1952, in which he gave up 6 runs, 4 earned, and lasted only 1 inning. He appeared in 27 games, 11 starts in 1952, but none of them were one of the Pirates' measly 42 wins on the season. Klein went 0-7 with a 5.49 ERA. Following the season, he was drafted into the military and did not return to the big leagues until 1955. He got his first career win in the second game of a May 1st doubleheader, pitching a 7-0 shutout against the St. Louis Cardinals. Klein started consistently for the Pirates through the 1959 season and went on to pitch for 8 more franchises over 11 seasons, hanging it up for good in June 1970. He only started 42 games after 1959 and none after 1963. 1965 was one of his most effective campaigns. He pitched in 74 games, finishing 58 of them, both career highs. His 2.63 ERA was good, though not among his very best marks. For instance, returning to the Pirates in 1968, he posted a 1.68 ERA in over 100 innings pitched. Klein's 29 saves in 1965 led the American League, and that earned him 2 MVP votes, and the only ones of his career. Tying a record unlikely to ever be broken, on May 7, 1965, he picked up 2 saves in one day during the Senators' doubleheader sweep of the New York Yankees. They were scores of 4-3, 0.2 innings for Klein, and 7-3, 2 full innings for Klein. Klein was one of 4 relief pitchers to earn MVP votes in 1965. The other 3 being Eddie Fisher and Stu Miller of the American League and Frank Lindsay of the National League. This type of recognition for relief pitchers was not unprecedented, but it's fair to say that it was on the rise in the 1960s. Legendary sports writer Jerome Holtzman had introduced the idea of the save in 1959, and teams began to utilize pitchers like Klein more and more as late-game specialists. The statistic became an official one in 1969, the first new official statistic in nearly 50 years. And with that, a team card. Card number 57, the St. Louis Cardinals. Following its 93-win season and World Series championship the year before, 1965 was a bit of a letdown for the Cardinals. Manager Johnny Keane resigned literally hours after the season ended, that being the 1964 season, and a few days later was hired by the Yankees, who had beaten them in the World Series. Who they had just beaten in the World Series. He was replaced by Red Schoendienst, who had played parts of 15 seasons with the Cardinals between 1945 and 1963 and coached under Keane in 1964. Schoendienst took over essentially the same roster as the 1964 championship team. The most significant offseason move had been trading for starting pitcher Tracy Stallard, who started 26 games and went 11-8 with a 3.38 ERA, essentially replacing the starts of Ernie Broglio and Roger Craig the previous season. The same 8 positions players, Tim McCarver, catcher, Bill White, first base, Julian Javier, second base, Dick Grote, shortstop, Ken Boyer, third base, Lou Brock, left field, Kurt Flood, center field, and Mike Shannon, right field, got the majority of starts at their respective positions both years. Kurt Flood, who batted .310 and won his third of 7 straight Gold Gloves, was the only Cardinals player to receive MVP votes in 1965, while 5 Cardinals had received votes the year before, and Ken Boyer had won the award. In addition to Lou Brock, the team featured 2 Hall of Fame pitchers, Bob Gibson, who won 20 games for the first time and posted a 3.07 ERA, and Steve Carlton, who made his big league debut on April 12th but pitched sparingly throughout the season, appearing in only 15 games, 2 starts. Still, his 2.52 ERA in 25 innings was a promising start to a 24-season Hall of Fame career. Shane Dines eventually proved to be a very capable manager, but his learning curve was steep. The Cardinals were in last place in the National League as late as April 29th, with a record of 4-8. The low water mark, measured by games below 500, was 33-41, following a June 29th loss to the Philadelphia Phillies, their 25th loss in the last 35 games. They finished the season at 80 wins, 81 losses, and 1 tie, good for 7th place, just a year removed from winning the World Series. Next up, a White Sox card, number 58, Fred Talbot. Fred Talbot had a respectable but unremarkable major league career. He appeared in 195 games, starting 126 of them. He rarely completed a game, but was capable of doing so with 12. He never had a season record above 500, coming closest in 1966 at 11-11. In the 4 seasons he pitched more than 100 innings, his ERA was between 4.14 and 4.38. Over 8 seasons, he played for 4 teams and never made the postseason. He retired after a single appearance in 1970 with a record of 38-56, a 4.12 ERA, and a cumulative WAR of 3.3. Talbot did not pitch for the White Sox in 1965. He had been traded to the Kansas City Athletics in February 1965 as part of a 3-team, 8-player deal. Most notably, the White Sox got Tommy John and the Cleveland Indians got Rocky Colavito. 1965 was arguably Talbot's best season. He was nearly 500 at 10-12 for an Athletics team that went 59-103 on the season. His 4.14 ERA was the best of any season in which he pitched more than 100 innings. He also had career highs in innings pitched, 198, strikeouts, 117, WAR, 1.5. He gave up 3 or fewer runs in each of 7 June starts, going 3-1 with a complete game shutout and a 1.91 ERA. Although he pitched sparingly in 1963 and 1964 for the White Sox, this is Talbot's rookie card. For the 1965 set, there's not an obvious rhyme or reason to who got their own rookie card and who was relegated to a multiplayer rookie card. There are 4 Hall of Fame rookie cards in the set, all on multiplayer cards. Steve Carlton and Jim Catfish Hunter both made their debuts in 1965, lending to an argument for being on a multiplayer card. But like Talbot, Joe Morgan and Tony Perez made their debuts in previous seasons, 1963 and 1964 respectively, and they are also on multiplayer cards. Denny McLain, another key rookie card, but not a Hall of Famer, is featured by himself and debuted in 1963. In all, there are about 25 standalone rookie cards in the set, all featuring players who are not Hall of Famers. Of course, it's easy with hindsight to wish Topps had foreseen the greatness of players like Carlton and Morgan and put them on their own cards. All right, that brings us to card number 59, Nate Oliver. Nate Oliver was a role player on 3 Dodgers World Series teams, but only appeared in 1 World Series. He made his debut in 1963 and played regularly through the end of July, but then was demoted to the Dodgers AAA affiliate for the remainder of the season. He spent most of 1965 in the minors, except for a few games, and again did not make the World Series roster. Finally, he spent all of 1966 in the big leagues, appearing in 80 games and starting 39, all but 1 at second base. He batted a mere 193 with 17 runs and 3 RBIs. But he made the postseason roster and appeared once as a pinch runner for Al Ferreira in the bottom of the 9th of Game 4 with 1 out. After Maury Wills walked, Oliver was on second base when the Dodgers lost the game 1-0 and were swept as Dave McNally got the last out for an Orioles World Championship victory. But back to Oliver's 1965 season. His stat line for the season must have been one of the strangest in baseball history. He recorded just one at-bat, but scored 3 runs. This is because he appeared in 8 games, 6 of them as a pinch runner. On one of those occasions, he stole a base and he was never caught stealing. His only at-bat came on the very last day of the season in a 3-0 victory over the Milwaukee Braves. The Dodgers emptied the bench that day. All 21 players other than the team's 4 main starting pitchers appeared in preparation for the World Series, a berth to which they had already clinched. Oliver singled and was promptly picked off first base. His season batting average was 1,000, with an OPS of 2,000 and an OPS plus of 485. Card number 60 features Jim O'Toole. Jim O'Toole grew up in Chicago where, according to Mark Havey of the Society for American Baseball Research, he got a tryout with the Chicago White Sox in 1954 at 17 years old. The White Sox passed at the time. After stints with the University of Wisconsin and a South Dakota semi-pro team, Red Scouts took notice and signed O'Toole with a $50,000 bonus in December 1957, a significant amount at the time. O'Toole quickly made the big leagues. He got a start in September 1958, giving up 2 runs, 1 earned, in a 2-1 loss to the Milwaukee Braves. He started 19 games in 1959 and 31 in 1960 before playing a pivotal role on the Reds' trip to the 1961 World Series. The Reds had not been picked to compete for the pennant, let alone win it, but O'Toole started 35 games, struck out 178 batters, and won 19 games, all career highs. His 3.10 ERA was second in the National League to Warren Spahn, and he earned 10th place MVP votes behind 4 teammates. In the only postseason appearance of his career, O'Toole took 2 losses, though he was hardly to blame. He gave up 4 runs in 12 innings over 2 starts, and the Reds were held scoreless by Whitey Ford and the New York Yankees both times. The Reds lost the series 4-1. 1965 was not nearly as favorable for O'Toole. He did not pick up his first win until June 16th and was largely replaced in the rotation, starting only 4 games between July and August. He finished the season with a 3-10 record with a 5.92 ERA for a competitive 89-win club. By the numbers, O'Toole improved in 1966 for the Reds and in 1967 after being traded to the Chicago White Sox, but a July 1967 injury ended his major league career. O'Toole's 94 wins and the integral role he played in the 1961 pennant team earned him an induction to the Reds Hall of Fame in 1970. Card number 61, Chris Canizario. Chris Canizario had the unique distinction of playing for 2 different expansion franchises in their first season of play. After being signed by the St. Louis Cardinals in 1956 and appearing in 13 Major League games for them in 1960 and 1961, Canizario was selected by the New York Mets in the 1961 expansion draft. He started 42 games for the hapless team, which went 40, 120, and 1, a mark just recently broken by the 2024 Chicago White Sox. 7 seasons, 4 franchises, and at least 4 stints in the minors later, the San Diego Padres traded for Canizario on March 28, 1969, 11 days before the franchise's first game. Canizario started 128 games in 1969, the most of his career, but managed only a 587 OPS. The Padres fared not nearly as well as the 1969 World Series champion Mets, going 52 and 110. Because someone from the Padres had to, Canizario made the National League All-Star team. He did not appear in the game behind catchers Johnny Bench and Randy Hundley. 1965 was pretty clearly Canizario's worst season. He got a fair amount of playing time, starting 103 games for the Mets and getting 284 plate appearances, but he batted only .183, hit no home runs. He wouldn't hit his first career home run until 1968, scored 17 runs and drove in 7. His 502 OPS and 46 OPS plus were the worst by a wide margin of any regular on the still struggling Mets. And next up, we have the next Hall of Famer in the set, number 62, Jim Kaat. Spelled incorrectly on the front of the card, K-A-T-T, but correctly on the back of the card, K-A-A-T. His name is also spelled incorrectly on one of the league leaders cards in the set. Jim Kaat debuted for the Washington Senators in a 9-3 loss to the Chicago White Sox in the second game of an August 2, 1959 doubleheader. It was the first of 237 losses on his career, though hardly a fair one, as he started the game, pitched 2.2 innings, gave up only 1 earned run, and then watched teammate Hal Griggs give up 6 in 3 innings. Kaat went on to pitch 25 seasons in 4 different decades and win 283 games. He won at least 10 games and astounding 15 seasons in a row between 1962 and 1976, a mark exceeded by only 8 pitchers in history. He also won 16 Gold Gloves. His 190 wins for the Senators turned Minnesota Twins is second in franchise history, but well behind Walter Johnson's 417. Kaat was not voted into the Hall of Fame until the Golden Days Era Committee voted him in as part of the class of 2022. One might debate whether Kaat or Jim Mudcat Grant was the Twins' best pitcher in 1965. Kaat led the league in starts with 42, went 18-11, and had the better ERA at 2.83. Grant's ERA of 3.30 was higher, but he went 21-7. Grant got 6th place MVP votes, while Kaat got none, a testament to the importance that wins played in that type of voting. And with that, let's pause here and take a look at a little bit of footage by MLB Network from a few years ago when Kaat made the Hall of Fame.
Jim was that kind of guy that you meet and you never forget. First time I met Jim was when the Twins called me up and rookies had to just stay in the background and just be a rookie. But he welcomed me and talked to me a lot. Here I am, a young kid, and I'm playing behind one of the greatest left-handers ever played the game.
Jim Kaat, the massive Minnesota southpaw, he was simply invincible.
Jim, he was a great fielder. I don't think anyone in the league could jump off the mound and make the plays that he could make. I asked him at one time if I could buy one of his Gold Gloves. He's got 16. Jim, would you please share one with me? Also, he could hit. He could swing the bat.
This keeps him in the ballgame a little bit longer, the fact that he could get a base hit. He can pinch run, and because he's a good base runner and has good speed and good knowledge of base running.
You know, if you watch him out on the mound, boy, he used to have fun.
Look at Johnny. Johnny said, throw it again. He got a smile. Give it to me again, he said.
Some teams gave up on 39-year-old Jim Kaat years ago, but the Philadelphia Phillies lefty won his 257th game this week. More career wins than any active pitcher.
I think Jim's longevity comes from being in shape all the time. That's why he had the opportunity to pitch for 25 years.
Yankee left-hander Jim Kaat is one of 2 current players ready to join 12 others in baseball history who have played in 4 decades.
All right. Outfit change number 1. But moving on to card number 63. Ty Klein. Ty Klein was a utility outfielder, only once starting more than half a season's worth of games in 1962 for the Cleveland Indians, but frequently appearing as a pinch hitter 310 times, pinch runner 52 times, or defensive replacement. Over 12 seasons with 6 different clubs, he was a .238 hitter with only 6 home runs, and his high mark for RBIs was 28, twice in 1962 and 1968 for the San Francisco Giants. A highlight of his career was the 1970 National League Championship Series for the Cincinnati Reds. Klein did not start a game, but in 2 plate appearances, he had a triple and a walk, scoring the go-ahead run both times. First in the top of the 10th in Game 1, and then in the bottom of the 8th in Game 3 to help the Reds reach the World Series. 1965, with the Milwaukee Braves, was probably Klein's worst season. He appeared in more games, 123, than in any other season, but batted a meager .191 with a .487 OPS. He had only 8 extra base hits in 240 plate appearances, none of them home runs. Only 4 times on the season did he score or drive in more than 1 run, though he made those games count as the Braves won each one. After the season, Klein was taken by the Chicago Cubs in the Rule 5 draft. Speaking of the Cubs, card number 64, Lou Burdett. By 1965, Selva Louis Lou Burdett Jr. had pitched in 15 straight major league seasons, so it's difficult to excuse Topps' spelling his name wrong, as it did on this card and on numerous other cards through the 50s and 60s. He started his last games in 1965, going 3-5 with a 5.44 ERA for the Cubs and Philadelphia Phillies. His last great performance was the second game of an August 31st doubleheader, as he pitched a shutout and led the Phillies to a 2-0 victory over the San Francisco Giants. Burdett started a few more games in 1965, but never pitched more than 4 innings, then appeared in relief a total of 73 times in 1966 and 1967 for the California Angels. The Angels lost the last 15 games he appeared in. Though his career may have ended with a whimper, Burdett was dominant for the Milwaukee Braves in the 1950s. From 1956 to 1961, he won at least 17 games each season, posting ERAs between 2.70, a league-leading mark in 1957, and 4.07. His 18 complete games in 1960 led the league, as did his 6 shutouts in 1956 and 4 in 1959. He got MVP votes each year between 1956 and 1959, and earned third-place Cy Young votes in 1958 behind Bob Turley and teammate Warren Spahn. And Burdett pitched a no-hitter on August 18, 1960, beating the Philadelphia Phillies 1-0. It was a dominant performance, even by no-hitter standards. The only base runner got on with a hit by pitch and was erased on a double play. Burdett faced the minimum 27 batters that day. But perhaps his most noteworthy dominance was for the Milwaukee Braves during the 1957 World Series. Burdett started Game 2 and gave up an RBI single to the New York Yankees' Jerry Coleman in the second inning and a home run to Hank Bauer in the third inning. He went on to pitch 24 straight scoreless innings, so 3 complete games, shutting out the Yankees in Games 5 and 7 to win the championship. Burdett was awarded the World Series MVP. Which takes us to card number 65. Tony Kubek. Don't have this card yet, so we are seeing a card that is available for purchase on eBay right now. Tony Kubek played 9 seasons in the major leagues, all with the Yankees. Although he played primarily shortstop, 850 starts, he also started 24 or more games at each outfield position and third base over the years. Light hitting by modern-day shortstop standards, Kubek's .266 lifetime average and 57 home runs were fairly strong by the middle infielder standards of the day. Batting .297 with a .716 OPS, Kubek won the Rookie of the Year nearly unanimously in 1957. Frank Malzone of the Boston Red Sox got 1 vote, though a strong argument could be made he was more deserving. Kubek made the All-Star team or earned MVP votes 5 of the next 6 seasons, the only exception being when he spent most of 1962 in the military service. In 1964, Kubek began to hit more like the shortstops of his day. His average fell to .229 and his OPS plus to .69, both career lows to that point. In 1965, Kubek started only half the Yankees games and set new career lows in virtually every offensive category, excluding his Army-shortened 1962 campaign. According to Joseph Wancho of the Society for American Baseball Research, Kubek had suffered a nagging injury most of the season. When the season concluded, doctors diagnosed him with spinal nerve damage and warned him he was at a heightened risk of paralysis. Kubek promptly retired from playing baseball at the age of 29. However, he parlayed his playing days into an illustrious 24-year broadcasting career, calling 11 World Series and winning the 2009 Ford C. Frick Award. That takes us to card number 66, Bill Rigney. Rigney's 18 full or partial seasons as a major league manager ties him for 37th all-time, and his 1,239 victories is 42nd all-time. Paired with 1,321 losses, he is one of 10 managers in history with more than 1,200 victories and a winning percentage below 500. Only Clark Griffith, Jimmy Dykes, and Ned Hanlon have more wins as a manager, 1,491, 1,406, and 1,313, respectively, without ever winning a playoff game. Now, Griffith and Hanlon won pennants before there were playoffs, and Dykes never managed a playoff game. Rigney's only playoff appearance was with the 1970 Minnesota Twins. He managed them to a 98-64 regular season record, but then got swept by the Baltimore Orioles in the American League Championship Series. Rigney managed the Los Angeles and California Angels longer than any other team, totaling 9 different seasons, from 1961 through the start of 1969. His 1965 Angels did not stand out for much. Rigney's steal rate of second base was 9.3%, the highest of his career. The team's 107 stolen bases on the year was third in the American League and only 3 behind the league-leading Kansas City Athletics. However, Rigney's 65.2% success rate was lower than the league's average rate of 66.5%. Which takes us to card number 67, Harvey Haddix. Harvey Haddix's career is often reduced to one legendary performance on May 26, 1959. But it was much more than that. He made his debut in August 1952 and came in second behind Jim Gilliam for Rookie of the Year the following season. That year, he won 20 games for the only time in his career, posted a 3.06 ERA, and led the league in shutouts with 6. He made the All-Star team for the first of 3 straight seasons, and his 6.4 WAR was the highest of his career by more than 2.0. He won 136 games in his career for 5 different clubs and led the league with a 1.061 WHIP in 1959. 1965 was the last of 14 Major League seasons for Haddix. He had been traded to the Baltimore Orioles by the Pittsburgh Pirates following the 1963 season, and he was no longer a starter. He was still effective, though, appearing in 73 games between 1964 and 1965 and posting a 2.63 ERA in relief. But according to Mark Miller of SABR, Haddix had arm trouble the whole 1965 season, starting in spring training. His best game of the year was June 11th when he pitched 4.2 scoreless innings to help the Orioles to a 5-4 win over the Boston Red Sox. After 2 more scoreless innings on June 17th, Haddix's ERA was a minuscule .95 on the season, though he had pitched only 19 innings on the season to that point. He appeared in only 8 games between June and July, then the Orioles sold his contract to the Milwaukee Braves on August 30th. He told the Braves, who were only 2.5 games out of first place at the end of that day, he could not help them in a pennant race. The transaction was undone, and Haddix never pitched again. And I had mentioned his most famous game on May 26, 1959. Here's a little video tribute to that day, which also, incidentally, involves Lou Burdett from earlier in the episode.
Perfect. In the world of baseball pitching, it's only occurred 23 times. There have been many near misses: Martinez, Mussina, Galarraga. But no game was so close to being perfect for so long and ended in such immediate misery than the one that took place Tuesday, May 26, 1959. Harvey Haddix, the 33-year-old Pittsburgh left-hander, took to the mound at Milwaukee's County Stadium as his Pirates faced off against the Braves. 1959 was the first season the 14-year veteran spent with Pittsburgh, after brief stops in St. Louis, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati. In his first full season, 1953, he was a 20-game winner and also led the league with 6 shutouts for the Cardinals. Also known as Kitten, a nickname given during his rookie year due to the younger resemblance of teammate Harry the Cat Brechin, Harvey claimed he had been under the weather the previous night and was having difficulty warming up prior to the contest. The visiting team arrived in Milwaukee early the same day, and the windy, rainy conditions did not aid in his mental state. Yet he would stay ahead of the count on the majority of hitters he faced that evening, and pitch for much longer than he or manager Danny Murtaugh figured. There were 19,000 in attendance, and though the contest took only 2 hours and 54 minutes to play, 86 batters came to the plate through an astounding 13-inning pitching duel. I used the word perfect at this program start, so what does that have to do with Haddix? In one of the most impressive outings in pro baseball history, number 31 was perfect through the first 36 hitters, or 12 complete innings. Throughout the game, Pittsburgh's defense was on high alert. Center fielder Bill Verdon made a nice catch early on to keep the scoreboard clean. And in the 6th, shortstop Dick Schofield stabbed a rocket off Johnny Logan's bat. Offensively, though, the team sputtered. A long drive off of Bob Skinner's bat in the 7th inning was kept in the park by the stubborn wind. The Braves' Lou Burdette, already a star to Milwaukee faithful, winning the World Series MVP in 1957, pretty much matched Haddock's, at least in the no-runs department. The Braves' defense helped him tremendously, including turning 3 double plays. Pittsburgh put together multiple hits in the same inning just twice the entire game. It was turning into quite the goose egg showcase. Then, with 1 out in the bottom of the 13th, Pittsburgh third baseman Don Hoke was charged with a throwing error. First baseman Rocky Nelson was unable to scoop the ball cleanly out of the dirt, and pinch hitter Felix Mantilla was safe at first. Eddie Matthews bunted the runner to second, and Hank Aaron was then intentionally walked. Joe Adcock hit a long drive 375 feet over the right field fence for what appeared to be the game-winning 3-run home run. However, Aaron, thinking the ball was a ground rule double and that Mantilla's run would be the only one that mattered, bounded straight into the team's dugout just after stepping on second base. Officials originally credited Adcock with a round tripper. 2 days later, the official scoring was announced. Adcock was given a double for his efforts, the only hit surrendered by Haddock's. Aaron was called out, and the final score was 1-0 Braves. One wonders if Adcock's hit was as dramatic as his 4-home run game in 1954 against the Dodgers, considering the former game's circumstances. Harvey's performance was memorable, but the books listed as just another game, and unfortunately for him, a loss. It would have been the first perfect game since Don Larson's 1956 World Series gem, and there wouldn't be another until Jim Bunning's in 1964. There were no official no-hitters thrown in either league in 1959. Haddock's walked 1 and struck out 8 in 12 2/3 official innings of work, with a pitch count of 115. Lou Burdette picked up his 8th win, going all 13 innings, giving up 12 hits but no runs.
Okay, and we're back. Second outfit change, first location change of the episode, and we just have 1 card to go. So let's power through. This is card number 68, Del Crandall. Del Crandall may be one of the best catchers with whom even the most avid baseball fans are not familiar. He broke into the major leagues with the Boston Braves in 1949, served the 1951 and 1952 seasons in the military, and then returned to the Braves after they moved to Milwaukee. In 13 seasons with the franchise, Crandall batted .257, hit 170 home runs, including at least 15 in 8 consecutive seasons between 1953 and 1960, and drove in 628 runs. He made the All-Star team 8 times, earned MVP votes 7 times, and won 4 Gold Gloves. He's generally considered the 4th best catcher in the Braves' lengthy history behind Brian McCann, Javi Lopez, and Joe Torre, with whom he shared catching duties from 1960 to 1963. With a still young Torre on the roster, though, the Braves traded Crandall to the San Francisco Giants after the 1963 season. But Crandall did not appear for the Giants in 1965, having been traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates as a backup to Jim Pagliarone, starting 40 games and appearing in 20 more. Crandall batted .214 to Pagliarone's .268 and had only 4 extra base hits on the season, probably accounting for manager Harry Walker's decision never to use Crandall as a pinch hitter. Crandall played 1 more season for the Cleveland Indians, then transitioned to coaching and managing. And that covers all 13 cards we are going to handle today in episode 6. And we will move on now to 4 days worth of games in the 1965 season. The Los Angeles Dodgers lost to the Philadelphia Phillies 4-3 on April 26, 1965. Sandy Koufax took his first loss of the year, and the Houston Astros beat the Pittsburgh Pirates 2-0 with Bob Friend's complete game for the Pirates, bested by Dave Giusti's shutout for the Astros. Bob Aspromonte had the game's only RBI as the Astros' second run was scored on an error. Chris Canizario got one of his 10 extra base hits of the 1965 season on April 27th, going 1 for 3 with a double and raising his batting average to 160. The Mets lost 3-2, giving up all 3 runs in the 8th and 9th innings. The Cincinnati Reds beat the Chicago Cubs 5-3 with Frank Robinson getting 4 hits, all singles, and 2 RBIs. The Los Angeles Dodgers bested the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-4, despite Roberto Clemente's 4 singles, and the Milwaukee Braves beat the Cardinals 9-5. Finally, the San Francisco Giants beat the Philadelphia Phillies in a 14-13 slugfest on Matty Alou's walk-off solo home run in the bottom of the ninth off Ed Roebuck. 12 players between the teams had more than one run or RBI. Dick Allen hit 2 home runs and had 4 runs in the losing effort. Ty Klein did his part on April 28, 1965, getting a single and 2 walks in one of 39 starts on the year, but the Braves only mustered 2 other singles against Bob Gibson, and the St. Louis Cardinals won 5-0. The Reds beat the Cubs 3-2 in 14 innings, the first 10 of which Joey J pitched for the Reds. Billy Williams tied the game in the top of the ninth with a solo home run. Both teams scored a run in the 10th, and then the Reds won on a reverse walk-off balk by Ernie Broglio. Bob Veal threw a 3-hit shutout for the Pittsburgh Pirates against the Los Angeles Dodgers, winning 2-0 on Don Clendenon's 2-run double. The Houston Astros beat the New York Mets 12-9, a game Mets announcer Lindsey Nelson called from a gondola above the field. Finally, the San Francisco Giants beat the Philadelphia Phillies 9-3 with a home run by Willie Mays and 4 RBIs from Matty Alou. On April 29, 1965, Don Drysdale bested Juan Marichal, throwing a complete game and helping the Los Angeles Dodgers to a 2-1 victory over the Giants, who managed just 4 singles, 3 by Jim Hart. The Chicago Cubs beat the Cincinnati Reds 6-3. Frank Robinson accounted for all the Reds' runs with a 3-run homer, but Cal Kuntz pitched a complete game and added 2 hits and an RBI to earn the win. Finally, the Braves beat the St. Louis Cardinals 4-1, helped by a Hank Aaron solo home run. The Dodgers leapfrogged the Reds to retake the lead in the National League by half a game over the Reds and Astros. Going further down in the National League standings, only the Chicago Cubs were above 500 at 7-5. The other 6 teams in the National League were below 500. The Phillies and Giants 1 game below 500, as well as the Braves, and the Pittsburgh Pirates 2 games below 500, the Mets 3 games below 500, and the St. Louis Cardinals, as we mentioned, 4-8 at the bottom of the standings. Over in the American League, no games were played on April 26th. The Twins beat the Cleveland Indians 11-1 on April 27th, 1965. Camilo Pascual pitched a complete game, allowing 1 run, hitting a grand slam in the bottom of the first, and adding an RBI single in the 5th. The Washington Senators beat the Baltimore Orioles 5-2 on the strength of a home run and 4 RBIs by Frank Howard, and the California Angels bested the Detroit Tigers 4-3. The Chicago White Sox lit up the Boston Red Sox 10-1 with John Buzzhart giving up 1 run in a complete game and Don Buford getting 4 hits, all singles. Tony Kubik went 0 for 4 on April 28, 1965, dropping his season average to 140. It was low all year, but never that low again. Al Downing pitched a complete game for the Yankees, who beat the Kansas City Athletics 5-1. The Cleveland Indians beat the Minnesota Twins 9-3. The Twins committed 3 errors, and Jim Kaat gave up 6 runs, none earned. The Detroit Tigers beat the California Angels 5-4, and the Baltimore Orioles blasted their way to a 6-3 victory over the Washington Senators, with all of its 6 runs driven in by 3 home runs. The Orioles and Senators played again in the American League's only game on April 29, 1965. Wally Bunker started for the Orioles, giving up 4 runs in 7 innings, and Stu Miller pitched 2 scoreless innings to get the win as Norm Seaburn hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th to help the Orioles win 5-4. Woody Held had 3 RBIs for the Senators. In the standings, the Chicago White Sox took a half-game lead over the Minnesota Twins. The White Sox were 8-3, Twins 7-3. Next up were the Detroit Tigers at 7-4, and the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians were both 5-4. The Baltimore Orioles and New York Yankees were both 500 at 6-6, and then there were only 3 teams below 500. The Angels at 5-7, the Athletics at 4-10, and the Senators at 4-10, and the Kansas City Athletics at a meager 2-8. And that covers all the games we are going to cover today. The very last order of business is to show a card that I picked up actually since I started recording this episode. I started recording it yesterday on the 11th. Today is the February 12th, and I got this in the mail on the 11th. Card number 5, AL RBI Leaders, featuring Brooks Robinson, Dick Stewart, Mickey Mantle, and Harmon Killebrew. This has been covered, obviously, in episode number 1, but I didn't have the card at that time. This is the second of 3 cards featuring Mickey Mantle in the 1965 set. I've got 2 of them, both league leader cards, and I am missing, naturally, the biggest card of the set, as is the case with most sets of this era, Mickey Mantle's player card at number 350. So, with that, I have gotten all 12 league leader cards. However, I still need duplicates of the 2 that feature White Sox pitchers, and I think card number 11 is in a grade that I need to, or in a condition that I need to upgrade. So, despite having all of them, I still have a little work to go on these league leader cards. And with that, episode number 6 of the Season in a Set project, 1965, comes to a close. Thanks for watching, and as always, collect what you love, flip what you like.